Go ahead and get started. My name is Adam Hops. I'm with the National Operations Center of Excellence, and this is the May version of Coffee Break TSMO. On these webinars, during this webinar series, we have conversations with various members of the TSMO community about the key issues that are going on. We've talked about World Cup. We've talked about um, uh, transportation demand management. We've talked about the TSMO trend surveys, next generation TIM, and every month we'll continue to bring you conversations on additional topics. The webinar is being recorded and will be shared on the NOCoE website and the NOCoE YouTube channel. PDFs will be available for those who are interested. They'll be posted soon on the NOCoE website. Please do sign up for our newsletter to get all updated information on webinars. So with me today is Eric Rensel. Eric is the CEO and president of Rensel Consulting, founded last year, and he is a member of the NOCoE Strategic Advisory Committee and has held other leadership roles with many of our partner organizations. Eric has done quite a bit of work on workforce development, including for National Operations Center of Excellence, NCHRP, and other projects. And I know recently has done some outreach on behalf of ITE to various workforce areas as well. So, Eric, I'll turn it over to you if you could, summarize a little bit of your experience, and then I'll get into to our conversations and questions I have for you today.
Well, thanks, Adam. And first of all, thanks for having me on today and listening to you give the overview of all the great topics that you've covered here on this series. I hope everybody can put up with a half an hour of me talking for sure. But I'm really excited to be here today and was very grateful that you invited me. So a little bit about me. I've been in the industry now for coming on 26 years. I graduated from Penn State in 2000 with a structural engineering degree. And actually, my son's graduating from high school this Friday evening. And I think I tell people about my history, and certainly with my son graduating this week, I'm kind of going down memory lane. And I've had the opportunity to work in all aspects of TSMO around the world and beyond throughout my career. I've been fortunate enough to travel to 47 states and over 25 countries to work in. And every time I have the opportunity to mentor young people and young professionals, I tell them about this story because I think, the one thing you don't know when you graduate from high school or college is where your career, where your life will take you. And I'm certainly evidence of that. And, I think that over the years, I've been surrounded by incredible mentors throughout my entire career. And that's why thinking about workforce is so important to me and why I incorporate it into what I do.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Yeah, so many of us have found our way into to TSMO specifically from various unexpected backgrounds, which is what I think makes TSMO so unique and interesting.
Yeah.
So, in the last 6 months, we've seen you a lot on LinkedIn Live. You did some various roundtables. You talked with some folks, local CEO, local DOT CEOs, state CEOs, a few other people some of whom work in the TSMO area, some of whom outside the TSMO area, and your conversations were all about sort of tackling this issue of workforce. So, can you talk a little bit about what your big learnings were from those conversations with some of these leaders and where agencies are succeeding, where they're challenged?
Yeah, so first, just a quick plug. All of those conversations are on my website at renselconsulting.com under Moonshot. So if you didn't see those when they came out, you can check them out there. But, I was so grateful that so many people voluntarily contributed to what I was trying to do with the thought about workforce development. And, what I learned through that process, Adam, is that it's almost like workforce is the big underlying issue that we just don't talk about every day, right? Our industry is full of technical people, problem solvers, really focused on the minute and trying to fight the fires that we have before us. But percolating just under the surface there is the idea of workforce development. I certainly feel it. I feel very old this week, as I mentioned about my son graduating, and so thinking about the next generation and what we need to do to prepare to maintain what we've built, maintain what we operate, but more importantly, think about what the next innovations will bring. I think one of my big takeaways is that the issue of workforce development is even more diverse than it has been that I can recall in the past, with thinking about not only refilling the pipeline with the same type of professionals that we need, but also thinking about other types of professionals that need to come to the table and be involved in the conversation. So that was my one big takeaway. I would say my second one is that um, like so many things that we do, there's no silver bullet. You know, it's something that you have to keep thinking about. You have to, put it on a sticky note in your office and just come back to it every so often. And something you have to keep chipping away at. A lot of the people that I spoke with during the LinkedIn series was focused on that K through 12 outreach and supporting STEAM and STEM programs in those type of atmospheres, and trying to entice people to get involved. And I was recently at another event where one of the presenters was talking about attracting students into workforce development, and they noted that a lot of programs reach out to the kids, right? There's summer camps, there's after school things, but the most influential person or role in a child's life determining where they'll go in the future is their mother. And so some more innovative programs are now starting to reach out to um, you know mothers and fathers and really wrap their arms around entire families as they think about workforce development. I think that's an interesting concept and something I'd like to pursue some more as we get into this. uh, University of Pittsburgh is doing some fantastic work in the city of Johnstown, Pennsylvania, around that idea.
Hmm, that's interesting. Yeah, we've heard various ideas through, you're in my, you're however long we've known each other, maybe 14 years, somewhere in there. We've heard various ideas around workforce development. We've seen the generational change, of course, that your son is a part of, where there's, a renewed emphasis on purpose, on changing things, on, social awareness. And so we've talked about, pitching TSMO and transportation as an opportunity to affect change. And we've seen that be successful in a lot of ways. That what you just mentioned of talking about, the most influential people on young people's lives, a shift to K-12 instead of college because of the cost of college, that kids tend to be, it's less about exploring and more about, it's more set in what they might want to do. Do you feel like any of those are permanent going forward, or core when it comes to recruiting people to work in transportation?
Well, there's one thing in particular that I explored during my LinkedIn series, and that was this idea of stackable credentials.
Hmm.
And this seemed to resonate with people at another event that I was at recently, where, you're right, college does cost a lot of money and it's increasingly costing more. And kids are worried about the debt. My son is worried about the debt he could carry coming away from his college education. And so, the community colleges across the United States are becoming more and more modernized and more
Yeah.
of a true proving ground for students that may be on the fence or not sure if college is for them. It's a low cost of entry in a lot of cases. And then, there's still a tremendous demand for technical skills and people taking up that type of work. And so the network of technical schools out there across the country brings to mind, if there could be this idea of being able to come out of school and go, or out of high school rather, and go to either a technical college or a community college, get some uh marketable credentials, some certifications that get you into the workforce sooner than, and then are mapped to these other opportunities at 4-year, 6-year degrees or what have you, that allow you to, we talk a lot of times about being a learner for life, right? And so we can live that value if we can do a better job of aligning, that time when you leave as a high school graduate to at some other point in your life. So I think that's an interesting concept to try to align those better. There's a lot of money at stake to
Yeah.
get that alignment done. A lot of models that have to change, but I think it's an idea that really has a lot of merit.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot, and it does feel um like it's a long-term kind of model of success. In California, where I'm from, the community colleges became extremely impacted about 15 years ago once the universities started filling up, and they invested quite a bit of money into their community colleges, and not only have they gained more students and increased programs, but I've seen an incredible development in outlining career pathways and outlining stackable credentials, like you said. So
Right.
you can go on to the any California community college and look at a potential career in healthcare and talk about, okay, here's what we can do for you in the first 2 years. Here's what you could do at a university. Here's what you could do at other certifications, in a way that we just don't see at universities as much, or at least out front as much. And I know it feels like a fantastic starting point for those who might not know, or who don't even know how to get into it, right?
On the other side of it, for the people that want to pursue that traditional 4-year degree, if you look at what I call like the major professions, medical field, attorney field, teaching, engineering, and planning, we're one of the only professions that's convinced ourselves that a series of 2-month internships in the summertime is a good indicator of whether we'd like to be in this industry and whether we can be successful being in this industry. And so, along with that idea of the stackable credentials and a longer learning journey, I really also embrace the idea of getting people into the workforce sooner and more work-based learning. When
Yeah.
I look back on it, it wasn't called that when I did it, but I had to pay my own way through college. And so I worked part-time job at an engineering firm near where I live. And um, looking back on it, I gained skills that maybe some of my peers didn't gain in terms of being responsible on projects, developing the interpersonal soft skills that we all talk so much about,
Yeah.
the life lessons that can go along with the academic study that can really, I think, make a difference.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I'm going to put a recent NOCoE case study in the chat box about um, the Alabama Department of Transportation and the TMC that they've co-located on University of Alabama, Huntsville. And they have young engineering students. If they're not working inside the TMC or even interning, it's right on campus. It's right involved. They have friends and classmates who are doing it. It introduces people to that work immediately, as soon as they hit the university.
Yeah, sure.
Encourage you to take a look. While we're on the topics of, credential certifications, a couple questions came in the chat box. I'll kind of loop them together and see what your response is. The first is, what type of certifications would you recommend? And then the second is, same line, TSMO should consider adopting minimum job requirements or experience with certification, and also requiring continuing education. IT, cyber. This person mentions has some of those minimum requirements. What do you think about that process? On the one hand, we like TSMO, like you mentioned, because it comes from different angles, brings in people with lots of different experiences. We obviously have lots of resources building, NOCoE, the Tom, but then the certification might assist in the speed of hiring or staffing.
Yeah, so on the certification side of it, you know, so much of our information, or so much of our world today relies on information and data. One of the things we explored during the LinkedIn series was the idea of certifications around data, not necessarily data scientists, but stackable data professional certifications, all of which I tend more to believe that demonstrating proficiency and mastery of skills over duration is my preference, because I think, as somebody who throughout my career had a chance to really explore different areas and was really given the opportunity by my mentors to own things and succeed at them, other people want that too. My son wants that. And
Yeah.
so I think that you know, when I took the EIT PE, you had to wait 4 years, and there's a lot of good arguments for why you do that, and there's a lot of good arguments against why maybe that's not so important, right? So if we're talking about things maybe that don't rise to the importance of being a professional engineer, but are certainly trusted people that inform and help the PE do their job, there's plenty of room in there for credentials around not just data from like a coding perspective, but in developing the 3D models, data, digital twins, all, where um, the analysis and modeling industry is going that supports transportation. I also think, field related certifications that exist today, whether it be for traffic signals or some of the ITS certifications you can get from certain colleges and universities. I think doing a better job of promoting those, and
Mhm.
then still exploring this idea of data analytics related certifications, so that we create career pathways for people that have that kind of background or want to obtain that kind of background, would make sense. And then what was the second part of the question again?
Um, it was certifications, and then it was sort of continuing education, like people have started for cyber IT requirements. You kind of spoke to that as well.
Yeah, that brings up something else that we explored during our video series, and that was upskilling, right? Because our industry, like many others, is going through a lot of change right now, and we need to provide a career pathway for mid-career people that maybe are still interested in being in our industry, but not either aren't as interested in what they were doing, or maybe what they were doing is not not going to be needed in the future. So those folks deserve to have a pathway that allows them to continue their career. We want them to continue their career in transportation, and so we need to do the work to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about that part a lot because somebody like me, for example, with a literature background who fell into transportation has done now about 10 years in TSMO. You
Well, we're
know,
still trying. We're still trying you out. We'll see how
yeah,
it
still
goes.
trying out and
Yeah,
still testing. And if I prove myself,
that's right.
there's, from the communications, the writing side, running some technical programs, I have a decent amount of knowledge about what's going on. In some
Mhm.
cases, more than I realized compared to, actual practitioners. But then in the technical side, I have
Yeah.
very little. I can tell you, the importance of smarter work zones, but I can't design one. And so it's sort of this, there's a lot of us out there. We're sneaky. We exist in the background that, who've been exposed to TSMO, and there's no real model for how to transfer into that world. And there's no set of trainings. And we're going to talk a little bit about our, the summit that we did in 2023, sorry, 2021. But I did find it interesting in that summit that one of the priorities wasn't new trainings, it was leveraging existing trainings. This
That's
idea
right.
that it's out there in universities, it's out there in community colleges, it's out there in the Ops Academy, the Rolfs that Ashto's putting on all over the place, right? And but we haven't really sort of collected them and created those sort of transitional pathways or certifications or whatever approach that's there. And it sounds like there's that call to action. That seems like a real call to action, is that sort of
One
collect.
of Yeah, it's true, and pathways is the key there. And I learned this from Stephanie Ivy University of Memphis years ago as we were working on some of this workforce stuff for the center, is that the thing about, we can go and create all of these training courses and all of these education opportunities, but unless a job classification is recognized by the Department of Labor, it's not going to be, um, it's not going to be reported on. It's not going to be looked at for funding or pipeline development. And so even as you look at a lot of our TSMO positions that have been created, right, they still map back to either being civil engineer, traffic engineer, maybe a data, uh, somebody with a data background, right? All the variations we've created for TSMO, which makes sense that we've created them, we need to take that next step and reach out to our peers and our colleagues, whether it be at the state level Department of Education or federal level Department of Education or labor, rather, we need to be having those conversations and educating them, because a lot of times we are our own worst enemy, because by and large, as an industry, we're a pretty humble group, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so we do all of this great work, but then we forget to tell people about it. So I think, all joking aside, to have somebody like yourself involved, Adam, that is able to help concisely tell these stories is crucial to the future of not just TSMO, but how we practice as transportation professionals.
Yeah, I agree. I want to talk a little bit about the summit and diversity, equity, and inclusion in a moment, but kind of along the same lines that we're here, the other thing I've mentioned to you that I keep thinking about is 2023. Astro did a number of state DOT roundtables, CEO roundtables across the country. That was World Congress year. There was some various state chapter summits. It was a big year, kind of returning back to the world, I think, for a lot of people. And um, I got to assist with a lot of those, helping to develop questions, and we concluded almost every single one with, what is the number one challenge that your agency faces? A simple cliche, but extremely important question. And every single state DOT, without thinking, at all 5 or 6 roundtables, said workforce. Every single one. And interestingly, it didn't always come up beforehand. And despite that emphasis, we seem to still be talking about the same needs for the last 5 or 10 years. These conversations, we've been citing things in the past. And it's as a member of the Strategic Advisory Council, as myself as in charge of collecting and disseminating and transferring knowledge, we still have a long way to go to improve that. And where do you see the opportunities to kind of bridge that gap from this identified need, all the abstract ideas, but putting that action into place?
Yeah, well, first of all, why did it come up? Why does it keep coming up? I think because it's really hard, right? It's not an easy fix. We can't write a report or generate a set of drawings to solve this problem. So that's number one. Number two, it's a moving target, right? People leave and enter the workforce every day. They have different expectations. Technology continues to change around us, making our jobs different than it was even when I started 25 years ago. And so that's why it continues to be, um, an important thing. And that's what I said during my work with the video series, is like, we can talk about any technical issue we want. We can focus on finding solutions to almost any problem out there, because we have brilliant people that work in this industry. But if we don't have the people to do the work, it's not going to matter what the solution is, right? We still won't be able to do it. So that's, I think, important. I think NOCoE plays a crucial role in keeping the dialogue going, right? Since its founding almost 10 years ago, that's been the core mission of National Operations Center of Excellence. Raise the dialogue, keep it going, right? And workforce it's not surprising then that workforce has been probably the core issue that's remained relevant and focused on by the center, because it is really hard. It requires thoughtful approach. it requires us to be consistent in what we do to find the solutions because they're going to be different for everybody. So where are we going next, or where should we go next? I think obviously as artificial intelligence continues to continues to be more and more into our industry, we got to focus on upskilling. We can't lose the workforce we have just because maybe they don't need to keep doing the same function they're doing. So we've
Yeah.
got to solve that. I think that we have to find a model. And again, this comes back to really a funding issue, right? When you go in as a engineering consultant, you have to get an audited overhead rate to work with public sector clients. And public sector clients have budgets they have to adhere to. And in some ways, we negotiate against ourselves because, you know, the one thing we all share in common is that we're all transportation professionals, just working for different employers. And when we negotiate hours, and we don't take into consideration training opportunities for that next generation, we're negotiating against the risk of being irrelevant in the future and
Mm.
finding other people finding ways to replace us. So it starts with, I think, changing how we negotiate contracts and really building in, um, the idea of workforce development into those as something that's a shared responsibility. On the public sector side of things, I love the DOTs and the agencies that have programs where they move people around
Yeah.
to different parts of the agency before they settle in. I think we need to do more of that. And I think we need to revisit the summer internship model. And I think that we need several agencies and consultants, private sector, all sides to step forward and say we're going to bear the cost or bear the responsibility of bringing that next generation forward by per figuring out a way to focus on kids that are going through college and giving them a chance to go to college and gain real world experience at the same time. There's plenty of models out there for apprenticeships, for work-based learning, different things you can call that are available, and we need to look at implementing them. And I think now is the time to do that.
Yeah. Fantastic. So, all this is love all the ideas and where all the energy can go. But a big part of this you identified in 2021 during our workforce summit. You moderated that and planned it and a big issue as much as we talk about these ideas is the issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion, where all this is fine. But when we talk about like limited people, Sean Wilson gave a keynote on that, formerly of Louisiana DOT D, and he gave a keynote talking about the vast swaths of untapped workforce, just because the
Right.
industry has failed to reach out to communities of color, minority communities. Historically, Black colleges don't tend to get the same outreach, though I want to mention the ITS JPO's PCB program is increasing that as one example. I'm sure others are as well. And then other people, pointed out the just DOTs and their connections. We talk about strengthening pipelines, but if those pipelines are into the same folks, the same PhDs, the same areas, then we're not actually broadening the workforce. So can you talk a little bit about what you've learned, since that summit in 2021, as you've talked with people about where DEI is and what we can do to continue improving to make sure that we are incorporating everybody into the transportation workforce?
Well, first of all, I was bringing up on my phone because I want to make sure I get this right. So the term is actually changing now.
Hmm.
So it's a lot more now is being referred to as DEIB, and the B stands for belonging, right? So there's a big difference between being um, being uh, able to participate and
Yeah,
being desired to participate,
yeah,
right? And you know, you can't. I've learned a long time ago, again with the places I've been, the people I've worked with, that you're not going to find the best solution if you only representing one idea, one perspective around the table. And I think that we need to continue to work hard at achieving all of the great DEIB um, you know, goals that are out there. And obviously we can do better at that. And I think that's where it comes back to the K through 12 aspect of workforce development is, let's make an investment in the future right now. Let's wrap there's great work. I mentioned the University of Pittsburgh. I'll mention Dr. James Martin and this work in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, where he recently spoke at a workforce summit that I was at, where uh, they went into Johnstown, a town that was booming during the industrial revolution or industrial age rather back in the 80s with steel and coal, and is now in extreme poverty. And I mentioned that they're wrapping their hands around the whole community. So, getting single mothers and families that live in poverty to educational uh, activities or opportunities that can change the course of their life. A lot of times there's childcare considerations there.
Yep.
And so by making one investment in a partnership between academia, industry, and public sector employers, they're able to address, you know, two for one, right? They are helping the parent or parents find a way out of their situation to, higher earning potential, and they're making investment in the next generation by making sure that the children involved have transportation to get to after school STEM activities, homework support, and things like that. So
Mhm.
I think diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, uh, we need to, continue doing the great things that we see in the industry right now. I'm active ITE member, and ITE is doing fantastic things around this with the equity committee looking at equity in design and planning on the project side, and then with their D&I committee on the professional side of it, right? So we need to continue programs like that, and we need to continue challenging, not getting comfortable with status quo on those is important, in my view.
Yeah, it's a great point, not getting comfortable with status quo. Um, so you've been involved with NOCoE since our inception. As you mentioned, that 10-year anniversary is going to be a TRB time period in 2025. I think you, Lori Mikowski, and who's our TAC chair now, and Abbas Mahadas, who's also on the strategic advisory committee. I think the three of you are our longest serving volunteers. And as we've mentioned, you led the development of a TSMO workforce guidebook. You moderated a summit in 2021 for NOCoE. As we look to the future of how NOCoE can continue to serve the TSMO practitioner, where do you see as the next steps for us? Whether it's workforce specific or more of a broader concept of workforce, where do you see NOCoE going?
I mean, broadly speaking, for NOCoE, what NOCoE is good at is bringing to light disparate conversations that are happening in the shadows. So we have to keep doing that, doing
Hmm.
things like this, albeit with more interesting speakers than the one today, but continuing to do things like this that bring these conversations forward is absolutely critical. I don't see workforce going away anytime soon. I think I've been working with the New York State Department of Transportation over the past 9 months, and they're doing wonderful work to, you know, reinvigorate and empower the connection between TSMO and IT professionals. So
Hmm.
I think there's a chance to bring that back because the technology is getting so complex so fast,
Yeah,
and concerns over security and trusted participants and keeping bad actors out is so crucial that you have to have good relationships between your
yeah,
IT family and your TSMO family. So I'd like to see NOCoE focus some more on that going into next
great.
couple of years, I should say. And then, I got involved when I first got involved with NOCoE. We did things like the e-portfolio contest that we did for a few years. There's still, there's the student competitions that are out there. I'd I'd put forward a bold uh goal for you, Adam, and that is to double the number of student engagements over the next 3 years.
Yeah, I like that a lot. We've the tournament that we do continues to increase with participation, new schools, but we're working with ITS-JPO on that to still mainstream it as a part of a lot of university programs to make, year in, year out to work on the tournament, and state DOTs are a huge effort at that. The e-portfolio contest that you started, that you came up with the idea with 5 or 10 years ago, it's morphed more into a TSMO project. Some of
Right.
the winners last year, talked about like TSMO and the Bright Line train, and the incorporation of first mile, last mile, and those types of things, which are great. But the real opportunity for that program that I think you help kickstart is just that exposure to industry leaders. I mean, you and Abbas and Tony Cradafil would take people out to dinner and lunch, and connect with people and get them talking about their experience, and get them, sort of comfortable talking about their experience, bragging a little bit about themselves. Some cases maybe bragging less about themselves. It depended on the person, but that sort of soft, kind of low key, a mentorship by was is extremely continues to be extremely valuable. And obviously COVID, stopped that for a couple of years, but that is back, and but I really like your goal of expanding it, because I think we can do a lot more there.
100%. Thanks again, Adam, for having me here today. It's been a blast.
Thanks so much, Eric. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. We'll put this conversation up on the NOCoE website, on the YouTube channel. Please sign up for our newsletter to make sure that you get notified when that recording is available. Also, really encourage you to go to NOCoE's workforce resources. We've mentioned a lot of them here. There are case studies and white papers on internships, apprenticeship programs, reaching out to non-traditional employees, incorporating new people into the workforce, lessons learned from other industries. We didn't get to talk about that, Eric, but lots of other good work happening in other industries that we can learn from. So really encourage everybody to use that workforce portal on the NOCoE website to keep learning more. Thank you, Eric, so much for your continued
Thanks.
support of the center, and for your wisdom on this topic. And we'll see everybody next month at Coffee Break TSMO.
Thanks again, Adam.
Thank you.